Welcome back to our Richard YouTube channel. Today's class we'll be learning how to make this beautiful flounce layered sleeve that we have here. It's a very simple tutorial and it's beginner friendly. If this is something you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is to create our flounce, and creating our flounce is quite simple. Because you're adding a crinoline to this, I'm using a satin fabric. So because of the crinoline, to strengthen the fabric, I went ahead to add my gum stay to it before cutting out my flounce. It's easier that way, so that I can just cut your gum stay and your flounce fabric together. So now I have my fabric rolled like this into, I divided my fabric into two, and then I rolled it vertically and horizontally, and this point where they intersect is the main focal point here. So to create the flounce, I'm going to mark 1 inch all round first as my base, or you can also call it your starting point. Once you have that marked round, I'm going to make that into a circle. Okay, so now to start creating our flounce, you just take any quadrant and then get the midpoint of that quadrant, and then the one that follows it immediately, get the midpoint of that one as well. Then you mark your actual length that you want to work with for your flounce. So for me, the length I'm going to be working with is going to be around 4 to 5 inches. So I'm just going to work with 4.5. So from here now, I'm going to mark 4.5 inches. So you can see me marking 4.5 inches from this midpoint here. So the next line is to connect from the first midpoint that I took here all the way to this new length. You can use a curve, or you can just use a free hand like I'm doing. Just make sure you get a very nice curve. So from there, you keep marking your 4.5 inches, which is your actual length for your flounce, and then you keep marking it all around. So you can make your markings close together so that you can get something perfect. Okay, so now I'm marking 4.5 inches all around, and that is what I need to create my flounce. Okay, so all the marking is done now. After marking it, I'm just going to go ahead now and cut it out. So before cutting it, I folded my fabric into two. So I folded the lining, you can see the lining without the main fabric, without the stay, and then the lining as the stay. So folding it into two is going to, because once you cut out the flounce, it may be a bit difficult to match them together. So I just decided to fold my lining and my fabric all together, and then I used my pin. You can see my pins, I use it to hold it, so that by the time I cut it out, and when you are folding it, make sure it's right side facing right side, so that you just go ahead and sew it on the sewing machine. So now I have cut, I have folded, I have pinned it together. The next thing now is to cut out my flounce. So you just need to cut on the lines that you have created all around like that. So you can see I'm cutting it till I get to this small circle here. So once you cut it, because of your pin, you can see that my lining and my main fabric is held. I'll just go ahead and sew it to turn, so it's easier that way. Just cutting this all around. So now you cut it, you can see that I've cut up to the small circle, so you can stop cutting here, or you can just cut to the last one then and stop it. So this is what the flounce looks like now. So this is what I have as my flounce. So I'm going to set the flounce aside now and bring in my sleeve. So I already cut out my off shoulder sleeve. This is what it looks like. It's a short, not so long, and the length of this sleeve is about 8 inches or there. Okay, 8.5 inches. So you can go ahead and hem it. So the next thing now is to create the lines that this flounce is going to follow. So depending on the space that you want in between them. Okay, so now you determine how many layers of flounce that you want on your sleeve. So for me, I want 5. Okay, 5. So the sixth one is just going to be the outer one. So for the main sleeve, I want 5 layers. So I have about 9 inches here. So you can just decide to divide this by 5, or you just eyeball it. So for me, I'm just going to be marking 1.5 inches interval. So this is 1.5. The next one is going to be 3, 4.5, 6, 7.5. You don't have to follow this, just decide how many flounce you want for yours. So I'm making that mark again so that I can get a straight line. So after marking it, I'm going to bring in my ruler and then make it bold so that I can see where I'm working on very well. Okay. Okay, so you can see what I have. I have 1 2 3 4 5. So the last one is just going to be on top like this. So I'm going to set this aside as well and go ahead to sew this. So to sew this now, remember we have already pinned our lining to our main fabric, which makes this very easy for us. So the next thing to do now is just to bring in your crinoline and sew all of them. Okay, so this is the crinoline. You can use any size of your choice. I just have a 1-inch crinoline here, so you just place it like this now, and then you sew all around together with it. But for this tutorial, I'm not going to be, I'm going to put crinoline on the outer part, but I'm not going to put crinoline on all of them because I'm just doing this for the purpose of this tutorial and I don't want to waste this crinoline. Okay, so I'll go ahead now and sew this and bring it back to show us. Okay, so I'm gonna to sew it. You can see the thread that I use so that we can see my seam line. So if you are sewing with crinoline, you just sew your crinoline together with it. So now I'm going to remove my pins and I'll go ahead to flip it to the right side, and then I'll take it to the iron and iron it very well. Ironing is very important if you want to get a good result. So you have to iron it well, especially because your crinoline by now will want to take its own shape too. So you can notch the sharp corners before turning it out. Then I'm going to flip it and go ahead and iron it. So you can see how it's looking now without the iron. It's not going to look nice. Okay, so I'll iron it and bring it back to show us. Okay, so I've gone ahead to iron it and you can see how smooth and flat it is laying now. So this is the wrong side and this is the side without the gum stay, which is the right side. Okay, but in this case, because I want to twist it, it's still going to show. Both sides are going to show, which is the reason why I decided to use this same fabric for both the lining and the main fabric. So now the next thing now is for you to go ahead and use your serger to serge this place so that it's going to be neat, or you can just turn it inwards like this and top stitch on it, or you add your bias, whichever one you know that can make it neat. So after doing that, now you're going to bring in your sleeve. Remember we already made our marking. Okay, so on my sleeve now I'm going to place it on the first one. You can start from this or whichever one is fine for you, but I'm starting with this. So I'm going to place my flounce on it. So if you don't have enough coils, if you want more coils, you can decide to pleat as you go, which means you have to add excess to your flounce. But I'm just going to place mine like this. So after placing it like this, when I get to this point, I'm just going to turn it. You can see I raised it up, and then I'm going to turn it now and then sew it underneath on the next line. Then when I get here again, I'm going to turn it and sew on the next line like that. So you can either do that or you just make sure your exact line. So once you finish one line, you cut it, you turn it neatly, you turn the other one, you move to the next one, you do the exact measurement there, you cut it out so that you can do it step by step, or you can just have it as one single flounce and you can just turn it like I want to do, because that's what I want to do for mine. So when you're turning, make sure that you leave enough space for sewing. Remember, we're going to sew this to the bodies and we're also going to sew it on the side as well. So when you're sewing it, you make sure you leave that space. I'll take it to the sewing machine now and then sew like this and then turn it just like I said. But if you feel this is not going to be convenient, you can actually sew it step by step. So I've gone ahead to sew it. This is what it looks like. You can see how I'm just turning like this, then from here I turn back again and like that till I get to the last one. So when you're turning, you make sure you leave enough space to turn it on the right side, to turn it to the right side, to sew it on the underarm, I mean. So this is what we have now, and like I said, if you want more fullness around your flange, you can just gather it a bit or pleat it so that it can give you more fullness. But I just did mine the way I want it. So now I'm just going to take it together now and close it on the underarm. And after closing it on the underarm, I'm just going to fix it to this body so that we can see the fit. So after closing it on the underarm, I'm going to fix it to the sleeve and then we'll bring it back to show us what we have. Okay, so I'm gonna head to attach it to the body. So you can see now the sleeve is attached and our layers, and I've closed this on the underarm as well. So this is what it looks like. Please kindly clean up this space before when you're doing this for your client, so that it's going to come out really neat. Okay, you need to clean it up because there is a tendency that it may show, especially on the underarm area. So this is what we'll have now. The next thing now is to lay the last layer on it. So for the last layer, you can take the measurement. It's going to come from the center front like this all the way to the sleeve. Remember, we've not added anything on the upper part of the sleeve, so all the way to the back. If you want it to get to the center back as well, you can make it. So I'm just stopping mine here, and that's around 15 inches for me. So the same way we cut our first flange is the same way you're going to cut this flange as well. Okay, so I've gone ahead to cut another flange, and this is what I have. The edge is exactly what I measured there. So for the part that goes out on your center front, you're going to reshape it. So I'm just shaping it in a way that is a bit curved like this. So you can see what I have here. So if you're not okay with this shape, you can reshape it anyhow you want. Then after reshaping it, I'm going to take it to the sewing machine now and also sew it on the hem, including your crinoline if you're going to be adding a crinoline to this. But like I said, I'm not fixing a crinoline to mine, so I'm just going to sew it and iron it. So I've turned it now and I've ironed it. So this is what I have. The last thing to do now is to sew it to your neckline. So from the neckline now, you can see how it is. So that part we shaped, I'm going to flip it in a way that by the time I sew it, it's going to be neat. So this is what you want to achieve. So now I'm going to flip it like this and sew. So by the time I sew it and flip it over, it's going to be neat. So you now sew it from here, you sew it all the way to your sleeve. Okay, remember we've not hemmed the sleeve as well, so you sew it like this. You sew it to the sleeve and all the way to the center back or wherever you want it to stop. So I'll go ahead and sew this now and bring it back to show us what we have. So I've gone ahead to sew it. As you can see, I just flipped it and then sew. So you can serge this part and then flip it and top stitch if you want, or you can just iron it down. So by the time we close it down like this, you can see that it is neat on the upper part, and it's just going to cover the previous flange that we have on the sleeve for you. So this is what it looks like now, and then I sew it all the way to the center part of my back panel. So the same thing we did here, you're going to repeat it on the other side, and then I'll take this to the mannequin so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, so this is what the flounce looks like. You can see the center front, so you just replicate what you have done to this side on the other side as well. So here you can see these rough edges. I decided to sew it like this because I'm not fixing a lining, so I sew it in a way that by the time I flip it over, it's going to be neat. But if you are fixing a lining to yours, you just sew it normally, so that by the time you fix your lining, you can just use it to cover it up, and it's going to be neat inside out. So this is what it looks like, and this is what the layered sleeve looks like as well. So if you want your sleeve to be longer, you just need to extend the sleeve that you place this on, the inner sleeve, which is this. So you can also make it have this flange and then a pencil sleeve, whichever one you think will work for you. I hope you enjoyed making this beautiful tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.